Hey folks, like a lot of you watching this, I tend to shop in the mid-market for my PC components. Why? Well, it's simply where you usually get the best balance of features, performance and price. This is especially true when thinking about AMD's B350 chipset. The mid-range for the Ryzen motherboards, and actually what my current Ryzen 7 build sits in. Another thing you might have noticed is that all my current systems, be it that old Core 2 quad system, the i5-4590 budget gaming rig, or the current B350 Ryzen 7 rig, they all use Micro ATX form factors. And while I love the Micro ATX factor because of its size and the fact that it generally gives you everything that you need, it does fall short sometimes when supplying those additional features that you might just simply want. You know, those unneeded little bells and whistles that help make a build your own. So for a while now, I've been looking at jumping up to the ATX form factor, and for as long as I can remember, the plan was to step up my current ASUS Prime B350 M-A M-ATX board to the ATX size B350 Plus, basically the same board but with better VRM cooling and a few extra ports. That was until I seen the STRIX ROG B350-F. This is a newer board and one that wasn't available at launch when Ryzen coverage was at its peak. And when looking online for reviews, it seems to very much flown under the radar, with the Prime Plus taking up the lion's share of the B350 coverage, and the premium X370 Strix version taking the limelight at the higher end. But once again, curiosity has gotten the better of me, and I'd like to introduce you all to the STRIX B350-F gaming motherboard, and show you what you get for your hard-earned cash, and also what the differences are when comparing it with the Prime Series B350 motherboards. First up, let's address the price here. Motherboard pricing varies much more than processors and graphics cards, but you're going to be looking at around a 25% increase in price from the ATX version of the Prime, but it should come in around 40% cheaper than the X370 version of the Strix board. At £110 it is one of the more expensive B350 boards, but it's still cheaper than the X370 Prime and actually finds itself sitting slap bang in the middle of that and the B350 Prime. Opening the box reveals the motherboard sitting snugly in its anti-static bag and in a cardboard tray, but we're going to remove this for now and we're going to have a look at what else is included in the box. First up, we've got the user's manual. Nothing untoward here, just a standard user's manual, but it is fairly comprehensive. Next up, we've got a set of 4 SATA 6GB cables, all in black, which is a nice step up from some of the odd colours that you can sometimes get. We've got a nice rear I/O shield, complete with ROG Strix logo and some padding at the back. No sharp edges here. Included, we've also got an extension strip for RGB lighting, and a set of 2 small screws for your M.2 drive. It's also nice to see that a set of cable ties is included in the box. And we get some fancy Strix, the choice of champion stickers. In this particular version, there's also a little money off voucher for some cable mod cables. And of course the absolutely useless driver DVD. If you're buying this, please just download the latest drivers. We've also got our warranty card, and also a nice little ASUS Strix coaster. Now, a nice inclusion here is actually the small sticker set that you get for your SATA cables, which I think is an absolute fantastic idea if you're connecting lots of drives. But why would you buy a Strix board? I mean, who's it for anyway? Well, the official blurb here says that it's geared towards enthusiasts and gamers, with RGB integration being a big selling point. Comparing the specs of my current Micro ATX Prime board, the Prime Plus and the B350 Strix, it throws up a few key differences. First up, we've got an additional PCIe 3.0 slot. This board does support Crossfire, although if you're wanting an SLI configuration, you're going to have to step up to the X370. The Prime's Realtek LAN is replaced by Intel's i211GB LAN configuration, and while it is technically better, it's not really going to be noticeable for most people, but it's nice to have it included. On the board we get 2 CPU fan headers rather than one dedicated AIO pump header, 3 chassis fan headers, which is 2 more than I get on my Micro ATX board and 1 more than you would get on the Prime Plus, and an additional RGB header to make 2. On this board you also get access to the Aura software suite, which gives you full control over your RGB components, something which, despite the RGB header on my Micro ATX Prime board, I couldn't do to the same extent. There's also a dedicated thermal sensor header to allow you to connect a thermal probe should you wish to add a probe and monitor a specific part of your system's thermals. The other big difference here is the inclusion of the ASUS Supreme FX audio, which is actually based on a Realtek chip. But unlike the Prime boards, it's not based on the ALC 887, it's based on the higher end ALC 1150, which does offer better audio quality for those with more complex or higher end sound systems. The higher specification audio solution, it does come at a cost though. Since you now get 5 audio jacks on the rear, you're going to lose your DVI-D and D-sub connections. Now this is not going to affect anyone at this time, but once AMD release the Zen Vega based APUs, it could push a user who doesn't have an HDMI capable monitor into buying an adapter. But really, if someone's willing to spend on the looks of a board loaded with RGB goodness, it's probably not really likely that they are the target audience for AMD's APUs. And really, that is the only drawback here when comparing it to the Prime boards, if you would even call that a drawback. The power delivery system on the ASUS line of B350 boards are all the same component wise, and while both the Strix and the Prime Plus feature heatsinks, which is going to help with your overclocks, the Micro ATX Prime board didn't, although to be perfectly honest with you, the lack of heat spreader, it didn't really stop my Ryzen 7 1700 being able to hit 4 GHz safely on that. In short then, the Strix board takes what made the Prime Plus a great B350 ATX board and gives you more of the things you need. Some of the things you probably didn't think you would need but you're going to find useful, and then adds a layer of gaming gimmickry, which might not add a huge amount of value, it is still nice to have. Thankfully, the additional fan headers on the motherboard and the higher quality components used in certain places make this, in my opinion anyway, worth the slight premium over the Prime Plus. And being a more neutral PCB colour while adding customisable RGB element, it is going to be very easy to get that aesthetic balance right and tie it in with your other components in the system. Build quality is absolutely excellent, and it does feel much more premium than its price tag suggests, and the fact that it eliminates the need to implement workarounds like I've had to do with my M-ATX Prime board with fan splitter cables means that as a complete package it is actually really hard to fault this board. All in all, I'm really looking forward to building on this board, which is going to be coming soon, so remember to click that subscribe button to get notified when that build comes up. And I'd also love to know if any of you have ever seen this board, if you've considered it, or if you've bought it. As I've already said, coverage of this board was pretty hard to find when I was doing my research. So it's a great looking board, it's a decent price, and it's got oodles of functionality and little extras that help make a new build feel that little bit more special. And that's the Strix B350 in a nutshell. So I guess all that's left for me to say here is thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you all in the comment section down below and in the next video.